His release shocked the world yesterday, so what's next for the former MVP? Ben Simmons says he wants out of Philly and he's prepared to skip training camp. So which team needs to pull off a trade for him and soon? And could 20-0 really be on the board for the Kansas City Chiefs? Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First, alongside Mr. Chiefs fan Nick Wright, Chris Broussard, Kevin Wilds. I'm Jenna Wolfe. Nick, where's the lie? Where's the loss? I think I'm with you at 20-0. What say you?
Hard to find a loss, Jenna, and it might seem outrageous. This is a team that recently won 25 of 26. Just clean up that one game, 20-0 on deck. We'll discuss.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda. We will get to the Chiefs in just a bit, Nick, but we got some bigger fish to fry this morning. The end of the Cam Newton era in New England after Bill Belichick, I would say, led us all to believe all preseason long that Cam was the team's QB1. The Patriots went and released him yesterday, paving the way for rookie Mac Jones to be the man for the franchise. Cam posted this on Instagram after the news broke. I really do appreciate all the love and support during this time, but I must say, please don't feel sorry for me. Hashtag I'm good. Nick, I'll just say it. I was surprised. I was shocked when I read this yesterday. Happened right if we got off the air. What do you think happened? Why do you think this happened?
Well, listen, Mac Jones is the starter because he outplayed Cam Newton. He has more upside. He is tied to the team far longer. Mac Jones is the starter for all the reasons that I laid out on Monday when we were discussing who was going to be the Week 1 starter. Cam Newton has been released, I feel, and I think it's pretty clear, because of his COVID-related absence. That didn't cost Cam Newton just his starting job. He might have lost that anyway. But that did cost Cam Newton his actual job. And this isn't, I'm not trying to force, I know some people look at established science and vaccines as some type of propaganda. I'm not trying to force that down anyone's throat. It's just the logical conclusion to the sentence of, we want Brian Hoyer more than we want Cam Newton. And I know, by the way, Brian Hoyer got released yesterday too, but that's more of a salary cap roster kind of manipulation, machination thing. The Patriots right now only have one quarterback on the roster. They're going to bring back Hoyer or bring in another backup quarterback. So why isn't it Cam? Because the juice is not worth the squeeze when you have a player who was inconsistent from a production standpoint, inconsistent from a health standpoint, and is, you know, in the small minority of 7%, according to the New York Times, of NFL players who have refused to get the safe, free, effective vaccine. And Broussard, when COVID cost Cam Newton time last year through no fault of his own, and has already cost him time this year through fault of his own, I think that was the final, you know, weight on the scale, ending his time in New England. I see no other justification as to why he wouldn't be the backup quarterback with some goal line and short yardage packages designed specifically for him.
All right, I agree with you, Nick, on Mac Jones. Even those of us, including myself, who thought Cam would be the starter, it was only temporary. Like 4 games, you know, 5 games, whatever. We felt Mac would be in there. And Bill Belichick has a history. One thing you have to give him, love him or hate him, he's going to play the player he thinks gives him the best chance to win. He did it with Tom Brady when he chose him over the first player in NFL history to make more than $100 million on a contract, and he was still in his prime, and that was Drew Bledsoe, and he chooses a 6th-round draft pick over him. He chose Vinny Testaverde over Bernie Kosar in Cleveland. So we know Belichick did this because he thinks Mac Jones is better, and he looked like he was probably better in the preseason. So that, you're right on that. Where you might, I do agree with you, the vaccination plays some type of a role, or the fact that he wasn't vaccinated, Cam, because all the reports are saying that that is when Mac Jones definitively proved that he could be the starter. Because in those 3 days of practice where Cam was out because of protocol, Mac Jones stepped in with the first team and looked great against the Giants, who actually have a pretty good defense in their back and forth between those two teams in practices. So I think that was a role. I don't think, though, Cam got cut because he was unvaccinated. I think it's very possible that Bill Belichick went to Cam and be out of respect, and I believe all the reports that Belichick really liked Cam, really respects him, and I think he went to him and told him privately what the decision was, and that Cam probably gave him the choice. Do you want to stay here as a backup? Or he may have given him the choice. You want to stay here as a backup, or would you like to go elsewhere? And here's what we know, Nick. Cam does not want to be a backup. In January, he was on WEEI in Boston radio on the Greg Hill show. He said, if you're asking me if I want to be a backup, the answer is hell no. That's what he said. All right. And then a few days ago on Sunday, he posted on Instagram QB1. Now, was he talking about his jersey number? Possibly. But most people think he was talking about I'm the starter. All right, Cam Newton is not ready to be a backup, I don't believe. And here's the last thing about this, Nick. Let me get this one point in. Mac Jones, as you said correctly, is their quarterback of the future. I don't think you want Cam coming in every fourth or fifth possession with some type of gimmick series. Yeah. And you notice, if Mac struggled, because the Patriots have designs on the playoffs. If Mac struggled, the coaching staff might not feel this way, but fans, media, and even players in that locker room who have respect for Cam Newton would probably start whispering, if not clamoring, why don't we go with Cam?
That's fair.
Why don't we see what Cam can do? I don't think you want your rookie QB in that position.
And I buy into that a bit. Wilds, what Broussard said, and we'll have Mangini on later in the show, and we can bounce this off him as well. What I don't believe at all is that when Bill Belichick is picking his 53-man roster, he gives a damn what anyone's feelings are. If he thought Cam Newton was their best option at backup quarterback, he's keeping him. He's signed to a contract. They're paying him. Cam has nowhere else to go. I do not think it's like, well, I'd like to keep you, but Cam, what do you want? What are your hopes and dreams? I don't think and I do believe Belichick respects Cam. I just don't think that there's ever, that no matter how much he respects a guy, he allows that emotion to play a part of his decision on building the roster.
That's true. That's
true.
true.
Yeah, I buy it. Belichick is not quite as cold and calculating as people have portrayed him, this Darth Vader character. And there are stories where he'll have some machination to put guys on the injured reserve list so they can get their pension or get some sort of bonus.
Sure.
There's plenty of stories out there like that nobody knows about, that Belichick did guys a solid. But I think you are right that I lean more towards vaccination than I do with winning games. Belichick's going to talk at 8 o'clock. We'll get that to you as soon as possible and discuss it later in the show. But here's why I think Nick's vaccination theory makes sense. None of the other theories really hold water. We've heard, he'd be a distraction. Well, that's not true at all. If you think he's going to be a distraction, you haven't been paying attention to Patriots or anything Bill Belichick said or Josh McDaniel said or Matthew Slater said. Everyone says he's been fantastic, great leader to Mac Jones, and has provided a lot of energy and spark. Broussard, you said he doesn't want to be a backup. Like, all right, reminds me of Carmelo. Like, they want me to call him off the bench. Like, yeah, dude, that's where you're at. Like, you might not want to be a backup, but you are. So if you don't want to be a backup, the season starts next Thursday, and then you're not going to start for the Cowboys, you're not starting for the Bucs. So on Sunday, the Broncos are going to throw you in? That doesn't make a lot of sense when one of the reasons you struggled last year is because you didn't have a lot of time with the playbook. So I don't buy that. The other idea is that the Patriots don't need him. That doesn't make a lot of sense either. Because last year, he outplayed Hoyer. He outplayed Stidham. Those guys played terrible when Cam went down with COVID in Kansas City. And Bill Belichick knows. He knows that even if you do go with the young guy like we did with Brady and Bledsoe, Bledsoe, if we can run the video, Bledsoe came in and won us a game in the playoffs. That's how we got to the Super Bowl. Brady got hurt. Bledsoe comes in, throws the only offensive points that we got. I think we got some defensive points, go to the Super Bowl. So here's Belichick after this game, where he says, hey, you need a couple of quarterbacks in this league. Sooner or later, you might need them, and I'm glad we had them today. That's how we won our first Super Bowl, Broussard. So to me, the vaccination theory makes more sense than Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham are better than Cam Newton as a backup to Mac Jones.
There's no doubt, Wiles, they're not better than him. But they're not better than Colin Kaepernick either. But your backup quarterback can't be a celebrity. You just can't, because it is going to be a distraction. Because at some point, if your starter struggles, people are going to want the backup to start or start playing, and now you've got a quarterback controversy.
I think that's fair, and that's something that we didn't spend a lot of time discussing of. And I think part of that was because Cam, I think Patriot fans, Wild said this to me before the show, that Patriot fans were more acutely aware of how awful Cam looked for long stretches last year than the national media was. So I think because of that, I don't think we considered a lot of, would Patriot fans be clamoring for him? Because there were games last year where it looked like his arm was shot. But I would like to thank Kevin Wildes on a big day for him. He finally has new franchise quarterback. Jenna Wildes did America a very good service there, reminding folks what going back to Super Bowl I, my God, how many breaks does Tom Brady need? I mean, Bledsoe comes in and bails him out. Bledsoe, the guy he replaced. I mean, that's how the thing started. Bledsoe, I mean, my God. Dating 20 years. The guy getting all the breaks. Bledsoe comes in and throws the touchdown, Jenna. It's unbelievable.
I was just looking. I was looking at the schedule, right? You got Patriots, Dolphins, and now you got Mac Jones, and there are two Bama guys facing off. Mac and Tua going at it week 1. How about that?
That's right.
Time for Drawing a Blank. What is next for Cam Newton now? The 32-year-old former MVP released by the Patriots yesterday after it looked like all preseason long he'd be the Pats starter. But alas, on to different pastures now. So, Broussard, this season, Cam Newton will be blank.
A fan, Jenna. He'll be watching NFL games from the couch like the rest of us. Look, it's not saying he can't play in the NFL, that he's not good enough anymore, but I don't think a team's going to pick him up. And I can think of some teams that make sense. Dallas needs a backup to Dak. I think he'd be good there. Baltimore, he'd be a good backup for Lamar Jackson. And as I said earlier, you can't have generally a celebrity as your backup quarterback because it does become a distraction. But Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott are so entrenched that as the starters that I don't think it would be in those cases. That said, I still don't think he gets picked up. The vaccination, I don't totally dismiss your point about that, Nick. And in fact, that would be a huge factor in another team picking him up. Why in the world would I bring in an unvaccinated backup? All right, he can just put my starter at risk in the classrooms and things like that. So if he doesn't get vaccinated, he has absolutely no chance of making it as a backup in this league. And like I said, I don't think he's ready to do that. Wild, you brought up Carmelo Anthony. Melo had to sit out for a year before he finally accepted, I'll be a backup. So, I don't think Cam's there mentally yet.
And I don't mean to just hammer his vaccination status, but the two spots where it makes the most sense for him to go, his vaccination status is a huge issue. The first one, Baltimore. Lamar's already unvaccinated. You're going to have both your quarterbacks be unvaccinated and potentially have to deal with the Broncos situation of last year. And the other one, well, where's his former head coach? Washington. What do we know about Ron Rivera? Excellent NFL player, very good NFL head coach, cancer survivor. He has taken the vaccine stuff more seriously than any coach in this league. He's not bringing Cam Newton in. The one spot, Wilds, where maybe there wouldn't be the controversy, stylistically it could fit, and they have a need, is Arizona. because Colt McCoy's their backup, but I think Cam Newton this season is going to be Rivers competition, meaning Phillip Rivers. Meaning if there is a really good team that with the quarter of the season left, their star quarterback goes down and they are sunk otherwise, like let's say, not wishing this into existence, the Cowboys. They're 10-4 and Dak goes down and they're like, oh my God, Cooper Rush. It's going to be Cam and Phillip Rivers both hitting up Jerry Jones, sliding into his DMs like, hey, Phillip Rivers is going to be showing him highlights of him on a practice field. Cam's going to be saying, can you imagine, by the way, Wilds, Cam sending Jerry Jones a DM and Jerry Jones is like, what language is this? Wingdings, look at this font. Somebody, Steven, come read this text. I don't know what it is. But so it's
Steven's
Rivers
not
competition
that text
to be the veteran quarterback that comes in if somebody gets hurt, Wilds.
Okay,
that's right.
But I also think the Cowboys are the issue too. Jerry Jones is very high on vaccination, has come out publicly saying you're not doing what you are for the team. So that's the issue. And if there is a case like that, you said Rivers competition. Old Nick Foles will be out there DMing people pictures of his statue and his Super Bowl ring. Like, hey, old Nick Foles, good for 6 games in the playoffs. You don't need Cam. Call the Bears up. I want to be out of here. So my answer is this. First of all, I hope the real answer is vaccinated. Can't be like, oh, this is a pretty simple solution, and I'll end up being healthy. That's the real answer. My more fun answer, I guess, although being vaccinated is a ball, is don't do it, Brady. We've got a lot of Patriots go down to Tampa Bay. And if Tom Brady ends up bringing Gronk and AB, and remember I had nightmares. I had nightmares about Edelman sort of like recovering and going down there.
Think of this.
And imagine if Cam went back. Imagine if the Bucs signed Brady and Cam goes back and scores a goal line touchdown week 4 in Foxborough. As a great man once said, a great man who now wears ties and has a little bit longer hair. That ain't great.
I can't.
Longer in the back.
That's what's going to happen. Kyle Trask is their developmental guy. He played well this preseason. But, like, Brady doesn't do the quarterback sneaks anymore, really, because he's so old.
Yeah.
They brought down, everyone's like Fournette's cook. They brought him down. And I'm sure Tom Brady, has his own theories on vaccination and how to defeat COVID with the TB12 method. Like, Cam will fit right in. Broussard, this is going to happen. Wild's just nailed it.
It does make sense.
I don't see a team
the fact that he's not vaccinated, could be a factor, but Wilds, I'm with Nick. It does make all the sense in the world. Outside of the vaccination, it makes all the sense in the world. Obviously, no competition for Brady, so yeah.
Brings in Gronk.
They brought in AB, Gronk, another way to stick it to Belichick, too.
What about Atlanta?
Yeah.
Falcons only have Josh Rosen backing up Matt Ryan right now. I don't know. I don't see a team bringing in an unvaccinated player. There's no upside. He had like one good pass. He had one good throw. Time now for a little Christmas in September. Yes, the start of the NFL season. Also the unveiling of Nick's NFL tiers. Laid out, laminated, laudable. Nick, who do you have ranked where and why? And the almighty tell us how. Take us through your 2021 NFL tiers.
Listen, I know we have literally tens of thousands of people who've never watched this show until Monday. They're the Chris Broussard hive, and so they're very unfamiliar with the NFL tiers. Here's how it works. There's a committee of 7. I am the chairman of the committee, but I am not the only member of the committee. There are 7 of us. We from the night Monday Night Football ends until the wee hours of Wednesday morning, we compile everything. We did that this week. We had a small break. We took a group trip to the U.S. Open, came back and finalized it. Our preseason official NFL tiers, 32-1. Let's reveal them. All right, at the very bottom, you have Expansion 2.0. The last expansion team's expansion team again. Then you have the Actually Dead and the Walking Dead. Those 6 teams, the only thing their fans care about this year is, do we have our quarterback? Is it maybe that we have it right? That's it. Those teams, not that interesting. Let's move on quickly because we have 25 more teams to get to. All right, hey, frisky but flawed. That's the Cardinals, the Jags. Shout out to the Jags. That right there is the Trevor Lawrence effect. I don't think they're going to be terrible. Frisky but flawed. Denver's got a lot of weapons and defense. Not a good coach, not a good quarterback. The Vikings are fine. The Raiders are fine. Nick, why are the Cardinals there? Why aren't the Cardinals better? Let me introduce you to Cliff Kingsbury. The committee, not a fan of Cliff Kingsbury. All right, now, new and old playoff teams. These 5 teams were in the playoffs last year. The committee says, you're out. Saints. Top-heavy roster, not enough depth. Drew Brees to Jameis, not great. The Colts, season from hell already started. The Steelers started 11-0 and then right down the tubes. Great defense. Roethlisberger's arm shot. Let's be honest, we all saw that playoff game. Washington has no offense. Chicago starting Andy Dalton. You're all gone. Here's who's new. Cowboys, you're going to win the division. Congratulations. Chargers, that's a Justin Herbert bet. And by the way, you're going to be better in close games because Anthony Lynn, game management, yikes. Falcons, you see the Falcons? That's right. The committee said, who's your sleeper team? Who's your shocking team? Wow. A team that was 0-7, 0-7 in games decided by 6 points or less last year. Kyle Pitts, does he do anything for you? He does a lot for the committee. They're in the playoffs. And then Patriots, Dolphins, fighting for that final AFC wildcard spot. All right, now the cream of the crop. The best 10 teams in football, according to the committee. Oh, my goodness. I have goosebumps just thinking about it. There it is. Zoom in on them. Fringe contenders. These teams could win the Super Bowl, but they're not as good as the other. Baltimore got questions. We're going to invest in receiver. Unfortunately, they're all hurt. Seattle, we're going to hand the car keys to Russ, and then like when you're teaching your kid to drive, you're going to say, all right, and you know what, actually, I'm taking over. You can't do it. We know Pete Carroll's going to do it. Hey, why can't the Bills, the Titans, or the Ravens be higher? Well, the problem is this. None of them can beat Patrick Mahomes. The Bills had a couple shots last year. Nope. The Titans had a shot in the AFC Championship game. Nope. The Ravens 0-3 can't beat Mahomes. True contenders. That's all NFC teams. These are really, really well put together rosters, top to bottom, offense and defense, Rams, Niners, Bucks. Any of them could win the NFC. Any of them could win the Super Bowl, but they're not as good as the #1 contenders. Green Bay. They've been knocking on that door 2 years in a row. Rodgers, did you hear him? Loves the receiver room. Oh, how about that? Aaron Jones back. Packers defense gelling a bit. And then the Browns. Maybe top to bottom, the best overall roster 1 through 53 in the sport. Plus they get Beckham back. And then, I got to tell you, and you might say, Nick, they didn't win the Super Bowl. I know, but for the 21st consecutive edition of the NFL Tiers, at the top of it is the Kansas City Chiefs. We didn't do a postseason Tiers. If we did, the Bucs would have gotten there. Unfortunately, we didn't. Sorry, Tampa. Chiefs stay there. 20-0. That's going to be the intrigue for the season. Can the Chiefs go 20-0? We know they have the best quarterback, they have the best coach, they have the best wide receiver, maybe the best tight end, inarguably the best safety, best team in football, 20-0. Broussard, woo! I want you to know something here. If you attack this, you are not just attacking me, you are attacking the committee as a whole. And the committee is asked to remain anonymous because it is so controversial at times, but there might be people very close to you in your lives who are a member of this committee. So let it all wash over you. Your thoughts on the inaugural 2021 committee Tiers.
You got me wondering now. All right, here we go. Nick, overall, not bad. This is like going out in the NBA scoring 37 to 40 points. But guess what? I missed the 2 game-winning free throws, so we lose the game. I had a good game, 37 points, but I ruined it because I missed the game-winning free throws. Nick, after only 2 full days on this show, I have concluded one of 2 things. That you or the committee is either secretly a big Tom Brady fan, and you use your strange and disrespectful tiers, pyramids, polls, rankings list to motivate him to more and more greatness, or 2, your life's ambition is to replace Max Kellerman or my odd couple radio partner, Rob Parker, as the biggest Tom Brady hater on the planet. Because, Nick, how in the world? How in the world could you have Tampa Bay on the 3rd tier? I'm from Cleveland. I've been in the dog pound with the Cleveland crazies going wild, and I won't put the Browns ahead of Tampa Bay. And Green Bay, the Green Bay that Tampa Bay beat last year, the Green Bay that lost they still are without David Bakhtiari, arguably the best left tackle in the league on the PUP list. They lost their all-pro center, which, by the way, Aaron Rodgers didn't make a peep about. Strange. Wait, how do you put them ahead of Tampa Bay? I made an indisputable case yesterday, Nick, that Tampa Bay will be better. They will be better. I'll give you the Chiefs. I'm with you on the Chiefs, number one. Tampa Bay should be ahead of Cleveland on that second tier. They're going to be better, Nick. They got everybody back. They add Gio Bernard as a running back, pass-catching running back. Antonio Brown's all season. O.J. Howard's back. What's not to love? Guys came back to do it again. Come on, Nick.
So here's the thing.
Yes, the
sometimes you bring everything back, and yet you're not as good. I will go back to my guy, LeBron James. 2014 Miami Heat. Hey, or 2013 Miami Heat. Win the title, beat the Spurs, bring everyone back. Let's run it back. Why change anything? Very same NBA Finals happened the next year, and the Spurs mopped the floor with them. Because you know what it turned out? They actually needed to improve. Their team was getting a little older, while the other team was hungry, angry about the loss, angry about the defeat. I don't know that this idea of while the entire league is improving, we're just running it back. That makes sense to me if you were 14-2 and you waltzed your way to a championship. Not if you were 11-5 and had a really rocky road through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs until the Super Bowl, where you got to go up against that Bethune-Cookman offensive line and en route to winning the Super Bowl. So listen, there's no disrespect to Tampa. It's none whatsoever, Wilds. That's the third tier.
It is.
There's only 3 teams ahead of them. It's only 3 teams ahead of them. That's not disrespectful. It's not disrespectful. It's proper amount of respect. This is the 2021. We are not going to be, bullied, and we're not going to be just looking in the rearview mirror. The committee looks forward, Wilds. You know this, and it is a projection, and that is the fair and proper projection.
Yes, my friend. I know the committee is always looking forward, as is Ulysses. So good day, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back, Miss Wolfe and Mr. Broussard. Greetings to you and Mr. Wright. I apologize for not making the committee meeting, but me and Ulysses were at the Audubon Society in Greenwich. He had a wonderful play date that we brought back some interesting petitions. He kept on talking about why the Titans deserve to be up, and all the other birds loved it. For the following reasons, I would like to petition for the Titans to go up to the committee for the following reasons contained henceforth. Reason number 1, underrated Ryan Tannehill. Yes, he had 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. They were 4th in points and 2nd in yards per games last year. And guess what? They got better. He had a better pass rating than Russell Wilson. And guess who he got now? Julio Jones. So take your Falcons, drop them down. Take your Titans and bring them up. Reason number 2, for the committee to ponder. New defense. This team was 11-5 last year. They allowed 27 points per game. They were terrible. So what'd they do? They got better. New defensive coordinator. They added Bud Dupree. He had 8 sacks. That's good news because Tennessee was 30th in pressures and sacks. 3 of their first 4 draft picks were on defense, including Caleb Farley. They thought he was going to be hurt. He's going to be great from Virginia Tech. Shout out to Michael Vick. And finally, the old Belichick protege, Mike Vrabel, who Mr. Broussard wrote an article about decades ago. Mike Vrabel's mind games. Remember, Tennessee was in a little bit of a rut. So what does Vrabel do? Should we come up with a new game plan? No. Let's just break down on the Ravens logo. Harbaugh's like, what are you doing stretching on our logo? How dare you? And Vrabel's like, you know what? Same thing I did to Belichick. I'm in your head with clock manipulation, stretching manipulation. For the following reasons, I believe the Titans should be moved up from kind of contenders to true contenders, my friend. Good day from me and Ulysses.
Thank you. We'll tell Ulysses it's great to see him again. I was worried he had a power line issue, so I'm glad to have him back. And the Bud Dupree addition is a good one. But here's my concern with the Titans. It's multi-level. One is, in the secondary, they add Jackrabbit, Janoris Jenkins. I don't think he's good anymore, and that's been a huge issue for them. Kevin Byard's a very, very good player, but aside from that, secondary is a big problem, particularly when you're going to have to go through Kansas City. The other, and while I like the addition of Julio, and you're right that Tannehill's been underrated, fact of the matter is this team runs through Derrick Henry, and we are now asking Derrick Henry for a third consecutive season to have the heaviest wilds. We're asking him to do something.
Derrick Henry doubter.
Essentially only. I'm not a Derrick Henry doubter, but the level of carries. Dusty had this for me this morning. He's at, if you include the playoffs over the last 2 years, he's at 780 carries and over 4,000 rushing yards. That is nearly 200 more carries than any other player in the sport. If he has another year that's like the average of the last 2 years, it's him and Terrell Davis, Eric Dickerson, Earl Campbell as the greatest 3-year runs in the history of the sport. Emmitt Smith as well. I'm not saying he can't do that, but it's been a long time. What's the most contemporary name I just listed? Terrell Davis. Then Emmitt, Earl, and Dickerson. We're talking 25 years ago or longer. It's just a lot. Derrick Henry's got broad shoulders, but that is a lot asking of him, Jenna, to once again, hey, carry the ball, and it's a 17-game season. 355 times, rush for 1,700 yards, and still be fresh for the postseason. It's a lot, so that's why I've got him there.
All right, to the NBA now. Big story there. The Ben Simmons saga in Philly continuing to unfold yesterday. The latest report says Simmons told Sixers brass he no longer wants to be in the city of brotherly love despite the cheesesteaks and the Liberty Bell, and he does not plan to show up to training camp. Broussard, what was your reaction to this from the three-time All-Star?
Well, Jenna, I did some poking around yesterday, made a few calls, and I was surprised he wouldn't go to training camp, even though he had been put out there by former player Kendrick Perkins a few weeks ago. But I made some calls, and I was told by someone who absolutely knows what's going on. All right, there's no doubt about it that he knows what's happening with Ben Simmons and the Sixers. And I was told, here's the news, that Ben Simmons is willing to go play anywhere for any of the other 29 teams except for the Philadelphia 76ers. All right, there was a report out a few weeks ago that he wanted to go to one of the California winners, the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Warriors. I'm told that was never true. He wants to go anywhere. So the teams that are out there, Minnesota, Toronto, those are the names of the teams that are really engaged with serious talks with Philadelphia. I'm told Ben Simmons would go there. That's how much he wants out of Philadelphia. All right, so the problems in Philly have been long. They happened before Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey even got there. There's just a feeling that they haven't used Ben properly, haven't developed him properly. And, of course, last year, the comments after the Hawks series from Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid didn't help. And there's a feeling that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are not a good fit because Embiid, obviously the best low-post player in the league. Simmons, while he can push it in transition greatly, in the half-court set, he needs to be near the basket. So that's why there's not the fit with Embiid because Simmons can't shoot. So they just won out. And the question is, what is Philly going to do? I think this could get really ugly for them at the beginning of training camp if they don't do it. So I'm thinking right now, Damian Lillard, Nick, doesn't seem to, he's not going to force his way out just yet. And I don't think he's as high on him in Philly as the rest of us are. I think he's higher on New York in the East than he is on Philly because he's not that keen on going to somebody else's team. Bradley Beal doesn't seem like Washington wants to trade him. So I think, Nick, you're looking at C.J. McCollum, who, he's not been an all-star ever in the West. I think in the East he'd have made an all-star game or two. All right, the last 2 years he's averaged 26 and 7 when Dame Lillard is not there. He's a better fit with Embiid than Simmons is. That's not a horrible move to get C.J. McCollum there.
I don't think this. I think if Portland is involved in the trade, it's because Dame demands out, but that's not happening on the timeline that we now see that Ben Simmons has. If Bradley Beal was going to happen, it'd have happened. It's an easy trade, 1-for-1, Simmons for Beal. So I trust Broussard's reporting implicitly. So if he really will accept to trade 29 teams, I'm not going to go through all 29. There are 2 trades within the East that I think make a ton of sense, but we know won't happen. I know this won't happen, but as someone who has shorted the stock of the Nets and been right, I'm telling you right now, Ben for Kyrie, if personalities weren't a thing, basketball-wise, makes so much sense for Brooklyn, makes them a overwhelming favorite in the East. Overwhelming. And maybe an overwhelming favorite overall, but that's not happening because of the relationships. I think Wilds, if I were Brad Stevens, I would really consider Ben for Jalen. But the Celtics aren't trading Jalen. We have to live in, the reality of the world, right? So then there are 4 teams that I think, if I'm Daryl Morey, and Portland is Dame's not asking, and Washington's we're not trading Beal. There's 4 teams I would call because I do not want to get down to the level of Pascal Siakam and stuff. I would call Denver. Say, can we build something around Michael Porter Jr., where he is the centerpiece of the trade? Michael Porter Jr., amazing shot, super high upside. Ben would, I think, fit on that team, could help them massively defensively. I think that's something I would consider for both sides. I don't know that Philly wants to do this, but I would call Dallas and say, what would you give us in addition to Kristaps? If you can get what Kristaps was supposed to be, that pairing with Embiid could be very interesting. 2 guys both taller than 7 feet. So you fix the spacing issues because Kristaps loves being out on the perimeter. Go ahead, Wilds.
So then so just about on the Dallas thing, who's bringing the ball up? You're going to take the ball out of Luka's hands now and give Ben the ball most of the time?
No. I'm letting Ben, if we're in transition, go. And otherwise, if I'm Dallas, I'm putting Ben at essentially the dunker spot, and you're having Luka, he's going to help us, because Dallas has a huge problem defensively. And is the fit perfect from the Dallas perspective? No. But I think they look at Kristaps as a sunk cost at this point. Kristaps doesn't like Luka. He was just, alone in the corner in the playoff game. The other 2 teams, if I were Daryl, I'd call Golden State back up and say, I know you turned down the trade earlier of Wiggins plus Wiseman and the 2 guys you just drafted. Can we talk about that again? And the last one is Sacramento, because I think Ben for De'Aaron Fox is interesting. Ben would get his own team. De'Aaron Fox, pretty damn good player, man. Now, I know I'm partial to him because he used to kick my son's head in AAU ball in high school, and I watched him just be dominant. I think that fits. It helps Philly with the pacing. And by the way, if you're Philly, you have kind of drafted De'Aaron Fox's position. You drafted Halliburton. You just drafted Mitchell. So you could lose him and be, I'm sorry, if you're Sacramento, I should say, and be okay. Those are the 4 teams, Wilds. If the whole league is, our playground here, those are the 4 teams, if Portland and Washington are off the board, that I'm calling if I'm Daryl.
All right, so Broussard, I'm going to focus on 2 teams. I'm going to throw Sacramento out because of the original reporting. When it came out that said Ben wanted to go to one of the 3 California teams. And poor Sacramento, geez, guys, I know we're not a great team, but we are actually in California. You don't, it's like a geographical distance to us.
California. In the state.
Oh, it's brutal. Okay, I know there's an idea they're going to secede. Oh, Northern California, 51 states. Okay, Broussard, out of those teams that Nick listed, if I'm Ben Simmons, I either want to go to Golden State or I want to go to Portland, because I am looking for 2 things. I want good leadership, which we know Chauncey has, and we know what the Warriors have between Kerr, Steph, Draymond, Clay. We know there's great leaders all over there. And because I want to get better. As a player, I want to get better. When Ben signed his extension, he said, I look forward to growing with this team, being in Philadelphia, I want to get better. And none of it's true. He may want to be there, but he didn't get better, and he's not going to be there any longer. So I think Chauncey, as a point guard with a defensive mindset, could take Ben to a new level. I think the CJ deal would be nice, and I think Dame and Ben would be really interesting. Portland's had the same bad defense for a decade, and they're always like, oh, why do we keep on getting bounced? Oh, yeah, defense. The Golden State thing, if it could work, I think it would just be magical. With Draymond and Ben, when Warriors were great, they were already the #1 defense. You add Ben there, Draymond could, I hope that some of Draymond's edge would sort of rub off on Ben. Would be nice. Two clutch guys, you know, little clutch family. That'd be nice. So those are the two teams that I would like. Where would you like to see Ben end up?
I like Portland for all the reasons you said. I love Golden State, but I think I'm more with the side of Golden State's front office that questions whether or not Simmons and Draymond are a fit. Now, if you play them together, you've got two non-shooters on the floor. I understand. You got Clay and Steph, who are great shooters. Wiggins is okay, all right, but I would rather send Draymond. I love him. He's a key part of that dynasty. But I'd rather trade Draymond for Simmons. I think Simmons is a younger, better version of Draymond at this point and does all the things he can do except take the shot. Draymond doesn't make them often, but at least he'll take them. So I like that. I don't think Philly would take back Draymond as the main piece. Nick, I want to go back to what you said. I actually am with you on that Nets deal. And look, you're right. The personalities, Kyrie and Durant, are great friends. But Kyrie is injury prone, too. And obviously, mentally, sometimes he just goes here and there.
And you don't need more scoring with him.
I don't hate that at all. Right. I don't hate that at all.
It's such a perfect fit for Philly. It's a great fit for Philly. And for Brooklyn, it's exactly what you need. Harden can be your full-time point guard. Ben can help you so much on defense. Ben can be your small ball center with Durant playing the 4. That, as a guy that wants the Lakers to win the title, that's the trade that if it happened, I would be devastated. If Philly was able, if Brooklyn was able.
Philly's close to Jersey, too.
Yeah.
It's close enough to home, at least,
as far as Kyrie being. Yeah, but I just think the KD and Kyrie relationship, Jenna, is too close. That I don't think it'll happen, but I think it would be, basketball-wise, unbelievable.
All right, let's stick with Ben Simmons. Time for a little in or out. Sponsored by Midas for tires, brakes, oil, everything. Make your appointment at Midas.com today. Broussard says Ben Simmons will accept a trade to any team that is not named the Sixers. Nick, you in or out on Simmons playing another game for Philadelphia ever?
Well, listen, I had been in on this all summer, but there's very few instances of clutch clients not getting exactly what they want. And if he wants out, I think he's going to get out. So I am out on him playing another game with the Sixers, Broussard.
I'm out on it. Clutch, they don't make false threats. You know, he's not going to be at training camp if that's what their team is determined. So I'm out on this. Philly needs to go ahead and get the best deal that they can. They don't need to do it this week, but they're going to have to do it early in the season, if not right before the season. Either way, I don't think Ben's ever in a Sixers uniform again.
First things first, we got Eric Mangini joining us now, talking the end of the Cam Newton era in New England after he was released yesterday. Full disclosure, as soon as I heard this news, I texted Coach. I did, Coach, 2 words. It just said, wait, what? He knew exactly what I was talking about. That after Bill Belichick basically led us all to believe all preseason long Cam was the team starter. He wrote back, I'll tell you on the show tomorrow. I'm not wasting my time texting you. So Cam's release means the job...
So Cam's release means the job is Mac Jones's, which was, sent shockwaves across the NFL yesterday. Not so much that Mac was the starter, but that Cam was released. But what does it mean for Wild's beloved Patriots? Coach Mangini's here with us. Coach, I think the Patriots are, with or without Cam, whether it's Mac or Cam, I don't think their projection for the season changes that much. I don't think they're as good as Buffalo. I think they are going to be fighting and clawing with Miami to be the second playoff team out of the AFC East. I know you don't love the early season projections, but I think the AFC North's going to have a couple playoff teams. You know, Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, pick 2 of the 3. I think the AFC West is going to have a couple playoff teams in Kansas City and the Chargers. And I think the AFC South likely only has 1. So that leaves 2 for the AFC East. The question is, will it be New England or Miami, assuming Buffalo doesn't fall off the map? So I think that's their ceiling. I think their ceiling is, I want to say 10-6, but I guess in this 11-6, 10-7, you know, in that range, and being a good, very well coached, good defensive, average offense. I think average offense is probably the ceiling, even with all the additions. That's how I land on it. What say you, Coach?
Well, the whole situation, it was so interesting. The fact that they cut Cam obviously means that they didn't feel like he could be a viable backup in the sense. I don't think it was from a performance standpoint, but from a nurturing and supportive standpoint. And they wanted to make sure that they took away any of the potential conflict from Mac Jones. So that they go all in on that aspect. The division is interesting because it's all young quarterbacks. It's got to be one of the youngest group of quarterbacks in any division of all time. So that allows you some hope in starting a young quarterback that you're going to compete with the rest of the division. And then you've got such an experienced coaching staff, which to me gives you an edge. It's hard to project how he's going to do because when you look at the Giants game, he played as long as he did, but it was really against the twos, and he still got sacked 4 times. And that's the biggest fear with a guy like Mac Jones is his mobility, his ability to get out of trouble, especially when teams start lighting him up, which in that division, they will light you up. That's a division that's filled with blitz-happy defensive coordinators and competent pass rushers. So with Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or any of those guys that don't have that escapability, they're so good at recognizing what's coming that they're still able to get the ball off and not take those hits. Where a guy like Mac Jones, as smart as he may be and as much as he's grown, what you see in college football is radically different than what you see in pro football. The level of disguise is completely different than what you see in college football. And that's going to be a big transition. So I'd imagine they'll protect him for as long as they can. But with that being said, if you're spending that time protecting your quarterback, you're not really producing a lot of offensive firepower. So I see it as being limited in terms of how much they can expect from him early. And then it's a question of can they survive the early part of the season where he matures into the role as the starter.
I think, Coach, that they can be a wild card team. I tend to agree with Nick. Buffalo, I believe, wins that division, but they'll battle Miami and some other teams for one of those last playoff spots in the AFC. Remember, they've improved dramatically elsewhere. The defense, we know Belichick's going to have his defense together. You get Dante Hightower back after sitting out for COVID last year. Offensively, they added the 2 tight ends, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. They got one of the best offensive lines in the league. And Mac Jones, yes, he's going to have his ups and downs like any rookie, but I do think he's going to be solid. And I think, you know, their running game is going to be good. Damian Harris averaged 5 yards a carry last year without any real threat to throw the football. And so now that you can throw the football better, I think Harris is going to have a nice little year. They obviously added some receivers as well. So I do think they are a real threat to make it to the playoffs. A lot of times we look at a rookie quarterback, Wilds, and we don't think he's going to have success because they tend not to. But we do go back to Ben Roethlisberger, 13-0 in Pittsburgh as a rookie, got that team to the AFC title game. So I'm not saying they go that far. No, don't get me wrong. But I do think that this could be a playoff team with Mac Jones.
Yeah. We're going to be a playoff team. So, like Broussard said, Big Ben won 13 games, went to the AFC title game. Joe Flacco won 11 games, went to the AFC title game, lost. All Mac Jones needs to do is be as good as Joe Flacco. Do I think he can do that? Yeah, I do. And guess who else we have here? We're going to bring somebody in who won a Super Bowl with a young quarterback because the defense did the job. Oh, it's Coach Mangini. What a wonderful, wonderful addition to the show. Coach, don't you think that Belichick and that defense can carry an inexperienced, young, limited quarterback who maybe throws for, averages under 200 yards a game, just like Tom Brady did, with a few breaks here and there, some of the Patriots' magic can get us deep into the playoffs?
Well, here's what I'll say is that young quarterback was Tom Brady, and if Mac Jones is Tom Brady, then sure. But when you look at the track record, the last starting quarterback that Bill had was a rookie was Eric Zier back in 1995 in Cleveland, and he was 1-3. They've drafted 11 quarterbacks. I guess Jimmy Garoppolo's the best quarterback of that group that they drafted, and he didn't really start until year 4 or 5, so he had a ton of experience. And then you've got Matt Castle
for cheating.
Matt Castle was another guy that didn't start till later on, and even Tom Brady didn't start his rookie year. He had a year to sit behind Drew Bledsoe and really learn. So this is uncharted waters outside of the Eric Zier experiment in terms of how well a rookie can play in that system, which is extremely demanding intellectually against a division that's going to put challenges in that are different than a lot of teams. And the track record of 11 quarterbacks drafted, it's not one that, because there was 20 years to replace Tom Brady. So it's not a track record that you look at and go, okay, well, they're nailing it. And even when we drafted Tom, we drafted him in the 6th round and kind of won the football lottery there. So there's a lot to be encouraged by from where he is intellectually, the fit of the system. But a young guy, they'll do a great job of protecting him, but it's still 4 sacks against the Giants' backup defense in a preseason game scares you.
And listen, Broussard, the fact that we're all saying they can compete for the playoffs is the ultimate measure of respect being given to Bill Belichick. Because I know they spent a ton of money this offseason, but they still have a wide receiver room that is Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, and N'Keal Harry, who wanted out of there. We are all saying the defense will be outstanding. Well, their best defensive player is hurt in Stephon Gilmore, right? Like we are, and they are starting a rookie quarterback. Any other team starting a mid-first round rookie with that wide receiver room that was below 500 the previous year, we would not be saying, well, there you go. You know what I mean? 10, 11 wins competing. It is because, and by the way, he has obviously earned it. But it is the ultimate amount of deference being given to Belichick that we are even having this discussion.
I'm with you, Nick, and I've said many times that Belichick's the greatest coach in NFL history. But the facts are the facts. He has played 8 seasons or coached 8 seasons without Tom Brady. He's made the playoffs once. All right, there's a chip on his shoulder. It's the truth. It is the truth. The Brady or Belichick, who was more responsible argument is done, Wilds. It's over. All right, it's Brady. And that's not to say Belichick's not great, but I am here to say it's a what have you done for me lately world. All right, bring out Janet Jackson. That's what it is. And Belichick's got a chip on his shoulder, and I believe he's got.
That sounds like a great idea.
He's got to prove. People are watching him, and look, you don't think he knows? You don't think he's competitive enough to be like, we got to get to the playoffs? I saw what Tom Brady did last year. We got to get to the playoffs.
Okay, we're getting to the playoffs.
Well, that path is going to be via Mac Jones. Just moments ago, Josh McDaniel, the offensive coordinator there in New England, had this to say on the new starter for the Patriots. Said, I really do feel confident about his approach, his ability to learn, his ability to process information, and really his ability to make a mistake and learn from those two. He's a great listener, and he tries not to make the same mistake twice. So Nick, the coaching staff confident in the rookie, so you know Bill Belichick is backing him. It sounds like all he's got to do now is go out and, I don't know, live up to everybody's expectations.
Yeah, easier said than done possibly, but yeah, I think that here's the thing for me on Mac Jones, just quickly, Coach. I'm not going to, because he won the quarterback job, I'm not going to drastically change until I see him play in a regular season game what my opinion of him coming out of college was, which is he's fine. He's on an awesome team, and he's very well coached. And I think he probably has the traits of, at the best case scenario, solid NFL starter. Solid. I think Flacco, by the way, I think Flacco is probably his best case scenario. And I know Coach and Wilds, who are huge QB wins guys, they're like, Flacco, oh boy, let's take it. I'm not a big quarterback wins guy. And I thought Flacco never was a top 10 quarterback in the league, even the year he won the Super Bowl. He got super hot at the exact right time, and good for him, but I don't think he was ever one of the 10 best quarterbacks in football. I don't think Mac Jones will be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in football at any point in his career. Now, that's obvious total projection because he hasn't played. Never, we got to watch him play, but I wasn't super high on him coming out of Bama, so this isn't going to make me say, like Wilds is saying, the Patriots could go on some run like the Steelers went on with Big Ben. Big Ben's a future Hall of Famer. He's one of the, 20 greatest quarterbacks ever.
The one thing that you said, Nick, that I don't know if I totally agree with, did he really outright win the quarterback competition? Did you really watch the quarterback competition and say, God, this guy is heads and shoulders above Cam Newton? I thought he did some good things for a rookie, but again, it was against competition that was not game planning. That was the second team. This feels like something that they wanted to do because of growth potential, as opposed to him just lighting it up. And I do struggle with 4 sacks in a preseason game, and that to me is the biggest issue. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, all of those guys, they understood where the problems were, and they weren't going to take those hits. And we talk about young quarterbacks all the time taking unnecessary hits. To me, whether or not he even survives the first part of the season is A, how well they run the ball and protect him that way, but B, how well he protects himself because he understands what's coming. You think that it's there, but that those sack numbers in a preseason game are a problem.
Coach Mangini's back with us. Coach, time now for a little Christmas in September. Why? Well, we got the start of the NFL season this week. Also, next week, the unveiling of Nick's NFL tiers. Laid out, laminated, laudable. Nick, who do you have ranked where and why and how? Take us through your 2021 NFL tiers.
It is not who Nick has ranked. I know we say Nick on there, but it is the committee. If you are a new viewer, if you are someone who simply your sports television is determined by what channel is Chris Broussard on and when is he on, you're new to the show, welcome in. We appreciate you. Here's how it works. Myself and 6 anonymous contributors, including last year's only 5 others, but as promised, we let a fan join us. We had a competition. He now comes over every Monday evening. They stay until late into the night Tuesday, and we crunch the numbers. We usually have game film to break down. This year, we just have transactions, draft, free agency, all 32 teams, the committee's tiers. Let's reveal them bottom of the barrel. All right, so hey, congrats, Houston Texans. First team ever to be an expansion team twice. That's nice. Then you have the Actually Dead and the Walking Dead. 6 teams with no chance of competing. The only question is, do we have our quarterback of the future? The Lions are like, that's us. Yeah, you traded for Goff. You got to figure it out. All right, now to at least some relevance. Frisky, but you're not actually going anywhere. And then the playoff changes. Can we move it so I can show people? There we go. Frisky, but flawed. Cardinals, what's their flaw? Have you met Cliff Kingsbury? Jaguars, congrats, Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, get you up to frisky but flawed by himself. Broncos, like their skill position guys, like their defense, don't like their quarterback room. And the Vikings or Raiders are where the Vikings and Raiders typically are. It's like, oh, that team's okay. All right, you were in the playoffs last year. Hope you enjoyed it. You ain't going to be there this year. That's the Saints, Colts, Steelers, Washington, and the Bears. We're going to have at least 5 new playoff teams. We know that. Saints, Breeze to Jameis, nope. Colts, already season from hell has begun. Steelers started 11-0. Wilds was like, undefeated. Nobody cares about the Steelers. Everyone, and then we were all right because the Steelers were frauds. Washington has maybe the worst offense in football, and the Bears are going to start Andy Dalton. You're out. So who's in? Cowboys, you're going to win that division. Congratulations. The Chargers last year were so bad at game management. I like Anthony Lynn. Game management wasn't his friend. Plus, they have Herbert there and there. Dolphins, everyone's so down on Tua. I think the Dolphins and the Patriots are going to be competing for the final playoff spot in the AFC. And then the committee sleeper team. We couldn't believe it either. We put all the information into the algorithm, and you know what came out? The Falcons. I said, do it again. They did it again. You know what came out? Falcons. Kyle Pitts. 0-7 last year in games decided by 6 points or less. That'll come back. New head coach Arthur Smith. Falcons in the playoffs. Now, your top 10 teams in football, Coach. I know you're eagerly awaiting them. Any of these 10 teams could win the Super Bowl. Zoom in on them. Ravens, Seahawks, Bills, Titans are contenders, but they're fringe contenders. Ravens worried about the wide receiver injuries already, plus J.K. Dobbins going down. Yikes, that's a killer. Seahawks, they gave Russ the car keys, but I wonder if it's going to be like when I give my daughter Diora driver's lessons. I give her car keys, and halfway through the drive, I'm like, give me those back. You're not ready yet. I wonder if that might happen. The Bills are nice. They have a bad defense, and Josh Allen has never beaten Patrick Mahomes. The Titans, the defense should be improved, but it was abysmal last year, and I'm a little worried about Derrick Henry being able to maintain 2,000 yards. Now, true contenders, Rams, Niners, Bucks. The Niners, year from hell last year, all the injuries. That's not going to happen again. Plus, if Jimmy G goes down, you have Trey Lance. The Rams, solid on both sides. I don't love Matt Stafford the way some do, but he's clearly better than Goff. And the Bucks have as good of a top-to-bottom roster as almost anyone in the NFL. Almost, I say, because the Browns, number one AFC contenders, the Browns. The best roster 1 through 53 if you're not weighing for the quarterback. It's hard to find a weakness, particularly if the secondary stays healthy. The Packers, they've been knocking on the door 2 years in a row. I think this is the year, the committee thinks this is the year they finally break through and get back to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, the Chiefs. The only interesting thing about the Chiefs is will they go 20-0? They play, by the way, in the first 7 weeks, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Bills, the Titans, and the Browns. If they start off 7-0, that's all before Christmas, start printing up the T-shirts, undefeated season on deck. Coach Mangini, I will remind you that if you attack this, you are not just attacking me. You are attacking the committee and a former, I don't want to reveal too much, but someone who's been on one of your coaching staffs is a member of the committee. So keep that in mind. Your thoughts on the committee's rankings?
I'm way more intrigued by the committee than I am by these rankings, especially considering that there's someone that I'm familiar with. I'm shocked, and I'd love to see the process that you guys go through. I'm sure it's very detailed and doesn't include any type of adult beverages. Starting off the top, Kansas City going 20-0. Well, that's wrong. They're going to probably lose week 1 against the Browns. I do like your top contender.
So you like the Browns
list. Well, yeah, I do like the Browns. I think they'll probably beat Kansas City in the first week of the season. And but just going through some of these other items that you have, I don't get the Falcons pick. Usually I'm high on the Falcons, and this year they had more losses than gains. I like the Kyle Pitts pick, but I don't know how much of a significant impact he's going to have on it. And it's a new head coach in a division that I think is very competitive. The Dolphins I struggle with because of Tua, just like we always talk about. Are we seeing progress? Are we seeing gains? And when the organization's potentially trying to go get Deshaun Watson, it doesn't make you think that they're extremely confident with the guy that they have. There's a lot to like about him. There is, but Tua's struggles I think could knock him out of the playoffs again. You know, in terms of the bottom tiers that you have, I like Carolina a lot better than you do in terms of them being the Walking Dead. I think that's a little bit unfair. They had 11 games decided by a score or less, and I watched a bunch of those because my youngest is a big fan. They get Christian McCaffrey back. Their young defense is better than it was a year ago because they've matured. I think they can make more noise than Atlanta can this year. the Steelers. Why do you hate on the Steelers constantly? Big Ben is going to keep them in contention.
Did you watch the playoff game?
I watched the whole season. The play. I understand that they asked him to throw 58 times in the game, which is that's really Steelers football.
Doesn't help.
So now if they get back to Steelers football and they drafted Najee Harris and they start running the ball, the defense is solid. Everybody underestimates him and that team, and I think that's a mistake.
I got to jump in because Coach evidently has an issue with every single part of the rankings, so you should have applied to be.
I'm not through.
Evidently, your application was lost in the mail because if you have an issue with every single level of them, then evidently you don't like the ranking. I'm going to ignore the Panthers thing because the answer to why do I not believe in the Panthers? Have you met Sam Darnold? I'm going to ignore the Steelers thing because your love affair with Ben Roethlisberger goes back 15 years and I don't want to disrupt it. On the Falcons,
33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions last year. It's terrible.
Listen, okay, that's fine. The Falcons, Broussard, last year, 7 games decided by less than a touchdown. They lost all of them. And to reference Wild's buddy Bill Simmons, maybe a little Ewing theory potential with Julio Jones. I'm not a big believer in that theory, but if it happens, you heard it here first. So there it is. Falcons are the surprise team. Here's the thing about surprise teams, Broussard, they're surprises. Like, nobody's like, hey, surprise team. Everybody saw that coming. Then they're not a surprise team. So the Falcons, my surprise team, Broussard.
What's wrong with Carolina? What's wrong with Carolina winning or losing 8 out of 11 games by 1 score? How come they can't be the surprise team?
8 out of
they
11.
get Christian McCaffrey back. They've got a bunch.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, that's
8 out of 11. That's not 0 for 7. There's a difference.
You win another.
It's a difference. Listen, hey.
It's
Mangini's
more
tiers
than 0
have
for
Carolina
7.
up there.
It's more.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's Mangini's tiers have Carolina higher. That's fine. Sam Darnold, big Sam Darnold fan. I didn't know those existed. That's fine.
Coach, that was impressive. I mean, you just dismantled the bottom half of Nick's tiers. That was tough to watch, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. Nick, I'm gonna give you a little bit of love, a little love. I actually agree with your top 10, all of it except one thing, and it's a huge thing. How in the world do you disrespect Tampa Bay like this? It's only taken me 2.5 shows now to conclude that one of 2 things with you. You are either one, secretly a huge Tom Brady fan, and you use these strange tiers and rankings, lists, et al., and all this to secretly motivate Brady onto more and more greatness, or 2, you are trying to supplant Max Kellerman and my odd couple radio partner, Rob Parker, as the biggest Tom Brady haters on earth. Because for you to have them in the 3rd tier, why are they behind a Green Bay team they just beat? A Green Bay team that has lost 2 of, right now at least, has 2 of their best offensive linemen out. All right, a team that had a tough offseason. And Cleveland, I like Cleveland. And Coach might be right. Maybe they do win their first game of the season, that big game. But I can't put them ahead of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's going to be better, Nick. We all know that. Don't make me say Gio Bernard one more time. But O.J. Howard and Antonio Brown for the full season. Yeah. The defense, they're going to be better. You got to move them up. You got to move them up, period.
So here's the thing. There's not going to be better. They stayed the exact same. In my house, Wilds, we do the thing, it's very cliche. We do where all the kids line up and you know, each school year you put a little pencil on where their head is and you compare it to, the other kids. Well, my son's in his 20s. So he's the tallest, but he stopped growing years ago. Eventually, the other kids gonna pass it like they can pass him because they're still getting bigger. The Bucks are like, nope, we're good enough. Hey, and as a wise man once taught me, he might be the man in the middle of this screen. You don't pick up where you left off. You're not defending that championship. You already won that championship. You stay right there. What, Coach? Coach really hates the rankings. What? Go ahead. Go ahead and give it to Wilds.
Are your other kids, have they surpassed your son yet?
What? Well, no, but there's
Not even
7-year
close.
age
Right.
difference.
Not even
Eventually it'll
close.
happen. And they're both
Not
girls.
even close.
It wasn't a great comparison. He's a 6'4" boy. They're both girls. They probably never will surpass him.
Exactly.
But the point remains.
He's the tallest
the
in
larger
the
point
family,
remains,
has
Wiles.
been and will be. Just like the
Jenna,
Patriots.
I don't
Or
know.
the Buccaneers.
Yeah,
All right, well-
oh, see, you're just tied to the
You heard
Patriots
his
stuff.
feelings.
The
Tied to
takeaway
it.
is we
You
have
heard his
football in 8 short days. Regular season back upon us. Welcome back. We're talking the end of the Cam Newton era in New England after Bill Belichick. I would say led us all to believe all preseason long that Cam was the team's QB1. Patriots released him yesterday, paving the way for rookie Mac Jones to be the guy for the franchise. Bill Belichick addressing the shocking decision this morning. Take a listen.
Why was releasing Cam in the best interest of the team?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's our decision. And, I mean, we've had, weeks of meetings on all players. So it'd be impossible to, rehash everything that happened.
Did Cam's vaccination status have anything to do with him being released?
No.
How much did having those 3 days to himself for Mac Jones help him beat out Cam for that position?
Yeah, I don't know.
What qualities does Mac have that you like?
First of all, he's had a high level of production. But I feel like he's been able to show an ability to do things the way we want them done at a productive level.
All right, so a lot of questions answered there by Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Just kidding, but a lot of questions asked. Nick, what'd you make of what Belichick had to say?
I say this with all due respect, and I understand why he had to answer the way he did, but I do not believe Bill Belichick for 1 second that Cam Newton's vaccination status had nothing to do with him not making the 53-man Patriot roster. I flatly do not believe that. I understand some will. You also need to understand Urban Meyer made the mistake yesterday of telling the truth that, of course, vaccination and the availability that goes along with it went into our final roster cut-down decisions. That happened yesterday, and this morning the NFL Players Association announced they're launching an investigation into those comments. You're not supposed to say that, even though everybody knows it's happening. Is Cam's vax status the reason he's not the starter? No, I don't think so. I think Mac Jones outplayed him. I think they wanted it to be Mac Jones. Mac Jones, the guy they drafted. Mac Jones has less health questions, vaccination aside. Mac Jones tied to the team far longer. He's younger, all of it. But is Cam Newton's vaccination status the reason he didn't make the roster? The reason ostensibly they're going to have Brian Hoyer as their backup? I know they cut him too, but they'll probably bring him back. Absolutely, unequivocally, yes, I believe that. I believe that if he wasn't going to be able to clearly and demonstrably give you the best chance to win on a week-to-week basis, it was not going to be worth the added headache of a guy who missed time last year because of COVID, who already broke the protocol this year that he's in because he's not vaccinated, not going to deal with it. And so I don't feel, Cam put on IG, don't feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for him. This one he did to himself. And Broussard, the idea that, well, Cam, if he wasn't the starter, he wasn't going to stay because he's a starting quarterback. Not this year, he ain't. There is not a team in the league that Cam Newton's going to start for in week 1 in the NFL. Like, it's not like, okay, I'm going to release you, and now you can go be a starter where? That's not happening. So I don't believe Bill Belichick there at all.
Look, I believe that the unvaccinated state of Cam Newton played a small factor, more than Belichick said, but far less than you said, Nick. I think it'll be a factor if he tries to go elsewhere. I wouldn't pick him up if I'm another team if he's not vaccinated. But in this case, I think there was more to this. Number one, Cam didn't want to be a backup. He said as much as in January when he was on the radio in Boston and said, if you're asking me if I want to be a backup, hell no. Those were his exact words. All right. And then he said as much on Sunday with an Instagram post where he said he's QB number 1. Now, I guess you can say it was referring to his jersey number, but I think it was referring to him being the starting quarterback in New England. So he doesn't want to be a backup. And you know, when you have a veteran backup, he's got to be all in on building up the young starter. And Cam may not be there yet mentally, and I think that was a factor. I also think that because of his stature, what he's done in the league, the respect he has in that locker room, I think that would be controversial with him as a backup and Mac as the starter. If Mac struggles, which he will at times, all right? They got Miami first game. They got New Orleans and Tampa Bay in games 3 and 4. If Mac comes out the gate not looking good, then the locker room, the fans, the media, there would be whispers. We're trying to make the playoffs. Mac's not ready yet. Put Cam in. And you don't want that on your young quarterback. So I think if Cam's not your starter, it was the right thing to move him out wilds and go with Mac Jones, period.
Okay, I agree with you to a small, tiny extent when you say there would be whispers to bring Cam back. So if like the Andy Dalton, Justin Fields is like loud clamoring, I think you got it right that there would just be tiny whispers of like, I don't know. You want to start Cam? Patriots fans watched Cam all last year, and it was sort of an any port in the storm vibe of like, well, he's better than Hoyer, and he's better than Stidham, so let's go with it. He was benched 3 times. There wasn't a lot of, like, clamoring for Cam. I think we would ride with Mac Jones regardless. My big question speaks to what Nick says. And rule number 1 of being a Patriots fan is never question Bill Belichick. But if I was another person, I would say, sure would be nice to have a qualified backup there in case we need him. Remember, when we went with Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe did win us a playoff game and get us to the Super Bowl. So look, it's not a competition between Cam and Mac Jones. According to Belichick, I have to believe that Jarrett Stidham beat out Cam or that Brian Hoyer beat out Cam, which is very hard to believe. Other teams are loading up at the quarterback position. The Eagles have 3 qualified quarterbacks. The Bears have 3 qualified quarterbacks. Right now, I've got 1, and he's a rookie. Not going to question Bill Belichick, but I also don't think it would be impossible for him to sort of shed some light. He's not going to, but it's certainly not impossible.
Also, listen, maybe I'll catch flack for this, but I'll deal with it. I understand why Bill Belichick said what he said. But it does not take a private investigator to draw this line. Cam Newton, 2nd preseason game, looked the best he has looked in a Patriots uniform since the Seattle game last year. He was 8 of 9. He was over 100 yards. He was 1 touchdown, 151 passer rating in that football game. There was not even a murmur that he wouldn't be the week 1 starter. He then violated the COVID protocol because he's unvaccinated, missed 5 days, and a week later he's cut. I think it's pretty clear what happened here, and Jenna Belichick just can't say it.